am Percival's secretary and also his fiancée. He never allows our relationship to be disclosed at the company. Yet he openly takes me home to meet his parents. Until the moment I saw his eyes redden as he pinned his sister-in-law against the wall. His hoarse voice trembling slightly. Madeline, aren't you jealous? If you don't turn back now, I'll really marry her. Suddenly I understood why. When I fell from a 10-meter height half a year ago, Percival didn't shed a single tear. It's not that he couldn't cry, but that he wouldn't shed tears for someone who wasn't worth it. I returned the ring and said frankly, I'm not getting married. At the company, no one knew about our relationship except Percival's assistant. Near the end of the workday, Assistant Tim sent me a message. Cornelia, Percival wants you to return to Radamill House for dinner tonight. I replied, okay. I waited for an hour at the company building but never saw Percival. The cold wind blew mercilessly, and I shivered uncontrollably as I called Percival. Are you coming? The phone was answered by a woman with a gentle, soft voice. Hello. Percival is driving right now. I'll have him call you back later. I paused for a moment, then heard a mechanical tone as the call was disconnected. I hailed a taxi and rushed to the Radamill family's old residence. Percival's parents greeted me with warm smiles on their faces. This wasn't my first time meeting his parents. The Radamill family was an illustrious clan. Percival's father was a businessman, and his mother was a university professor by all accounts. They could be considered an intellectual family. When Percival first suggested bringing me home to meet his parents, I was nervous for a long time, afraid there might be some dramatic scene where his parents would offer me $1 million to leave him. Contrary to my expectations, his mother was gentle and kind, never looking down on my working-class parents or my ordinary upbringing. Mrs. Radamill took my hand and asked, Percival, why didn't he come with you? Before I could answer, he walked in. By his side was a woman, her smile gentle and her voice equally soft. Mom, Dad, Mrs. Radamill's gaze shifted between the two of them, her brows furrowing momentarily before quickly relaxing as she smiled and said, Yes, we're here. The woman took off her wool coat, and Percival promptly took it from her, hanging it on the coat rack. The movements were fluid and perfectly synchronized, as if they had performed these actions together countless times. Even after 3 years with Percival, we never developed such seamless coordination. When Percival took the coat, the woman froze momentarily. Percival shrugged his shoulders and looked down at her. What's wrong? The woman shook her head with a smile. It's nothing. Mrs. Radamill held my hand and introduced hesitantly. Cornelia, this is Percival's wife. Her name is Madeline. As the words fell, Percival changed his expression. He seemed dissatisfied with this answer. You know, Percival's brother passed away while washing hands. Only Percival and I were in the restroom, and I began to speak. Why didn't you come pick me up tonight? Percival lowered his head, slowly washing those slender hands. His voice was deep. There were too many people at the company. Do you want to be seen by your colleagues? He glanced at me indifferently. I think Percival and I could win a little Oscar statuette, since it's rare for a couple to be together for 3 years without any colleagues noticing. Was his acting too good, or was my performance outstanding? At the dining table, Mrs. Radamill served a plate of seafood and placed it right in front of Madeline. Eat up. Madeline. Madeline looked awkward, her chopsticks pausing mid-air. Percival quietly moved the plate of seafood to the other side. You're allergic to seafood. Eat less of it. Mrs. Radamill said with an apologetic smile. Oh, Madeline is allergic to seafood. Mom doesn't know. The meal passed in complete silence among the few of us. Waking in the middle of the night, I noticed the man beside me was gone. I went downstairs to get a glass of water, only to see 2 figures entangled. Under the moonlight, Percival's tall figure stood out conspicuously. He advanced step by step, pressing the woman against the wall, lowering his head to gaze at the person before him. I pinched myself hard, doubting whether I was still in a dream. If not for the pain feeling so real, I wouldn't have dared to believe it. By the moonlight and the street lamps outside the window, I could clearly see Percival's expression. The corners of his eyes were moist, and his eyelids were slightly reddened. The person pinned against the wall by him was Madeline. Madeline seemed to have been crying, with tears still hanging at the corners of her eyes. Percival raised his hand and used his fingertips to wipe away the tears from the corners of her eyes. His voice was hoarse, trembling slightly. Madeline, are you leaving again this time? Why can't you turn around and look at me? If you don't turn around now, I'll really marry her. Madeline did not answer directly. her shoulders trembling slightly as she sobbed. "Percival, I'm cold." Percival took off his coat and draped it over her. Noticing she wasn't wearing shoes, he picked up a pair of fluffy slippers from the cabinet, knelt down, and put them on for her. Those furry shoes were still the ones I brought to Radamil's house. It wasn't until I felt the cold that I looked down and realized I'd forgotten to wear shoes too. This was the first time I saw Percival cry, after 3 years together. On the anniversary of his brother's death, he was in a bad mood, just drinking incessantly with a cold expression, without shedding a single tear. There was a mole in the company, and the finances were nearly drained. Yet he remained expressionless, handling the situation with calm composure. Last year, when I fell from a 10-meter height while skiing, the panic in his eyes flickered briefly as he arrived at the hospital. But he quickly composed himself. He had only stayed at the hospital for one morning before rushing off again. And as he left, his expression was flustered. It was the first time I'd ever seen the word fear written on his face. He was always unshaken in the face of crisis, but a single phone call threw him into disarray. And as he left the hospital room, he accidentally knocked over my water cup. And now, he tearfully asked Madeline if she would be willing to turn back. I wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes, touched the ring on my finger, then removed it and put it in my pocket. When I returned to the bedroom, Percival had not yet come back. During dinner, Madeline and I exchanged contact information. I browsed through her IG. Her IG posts were few, so I finished browsing quickly. Unlike me, who loves to chatter endlessly on IG. Actually, I post on IG just to catch Percival's attention. I remember clearly, the day I was hospitalized from a fall last year was my birthday. So when I browsed Madeline's IG and saw she had posted on IG around this time last year, I paid special attention. That day, her IP was located in Mexico. The content is, "I almost got robbed. Scared me to death." The photo shows the corner of a man's suit jacket. Percival's suits are custom made, each bearing his initials. So I'm certain the man in the photo is him. Turns out he panicked that day because Madeline nearly got robbed abroad, which is why he rushed overseas overnight, leaving me behind. Touching that ring, my heart gradually sank. Even proposing to me was just another step in his plan with Madeline. I drifted in and out of sleep all night. When I arrived at the office, the female colleagues at the reception desk gathered around me. "Cornelia, did you see that?" I followed my colleague's gaze with suspicion. Snow began to fall outside, sudden and unexpected, sending many people rushing indoors. Percival got out of the car, walked around to the passenger side, and placed his hand on the door frame to prevent the woman from bumping her head. The person getting off is Madeline. When I left Radamil's house in the morning, I didn't let Percival ride with me. All he would say was that there are too many people at the company, and we agreed not to make our relationship public. Wow, could it be that the company is about to have a female boss? "Cornelia, hurry up and tell me. Do you have any inside information? I heard Percival is getting married." I nodded with a smile. Probably. When the topic of marriage came up, my colleague asked me, "By the way, Cornelia, didn't your boyfriend propose to you? UIG even showed off the ring. Why aren't you wearing it today?" I glanced at my bare fingers and said, "I'm not getting married anymore." The colleague was stunned for a moment. In the distance, Percival's cold and detached expression only gained a hint of warmth when he was with Madeline. He handed the keys to the valet and opened a black umbrella, tilting it slightly toward Madeline. The snowflakes on his shoulders were accumulating more and more. The scene of several people gathered together was captured by Percival. His cool gaze fixed on us, completely different from the way he looked at Madeline. The man slightly restrained his expression, taking in every reaction. I looked at him. He looked at me, his eyes utterly calm. His gaze fell upon me. "Assistant Cornelia, aren't you supposed to be at work?" Glancing down at his wristwatch. 10 minutes late means forfeiting your perfect attendance bonus. We'll have a meeting in an hour. With a whoosh, everyone returned to their respective positions. A colleague muttered quietly, "Indeed, the richer a man is, the more devoted and loyal he tends to be." I smiled faintly as I bent down to organize the documents. Yes, having secretly loved my sister-in-law for 7 years, how could that not be considered deep affection? The meeting is in an hour, and I need to start preparing now, gathering materials for the meeting, scheduling the time, and coordinating with various departments. After handling all the procedures, I noticed the water dispenser's bottle was empty. I took down the empty bucket. Just as I was about to carry the new bucket up, Percival rolled up his sleeves, revealing a section of fair skin, with veins slightly protruding on his arm as he exerted force. He said, "I'll carry it." Ignoring his words, I gritted my teeth and forcefully placed the bucket up. Seeing that I had moved everything properly, he gave a slight nod. Every year, positions at CHE Group undergo a major reshuffle. Apart from minimal changes at the top level, the competition for the rest is fierce, requiring candidates to pass multiple rounds of assessments. It wasn't until Percival left that I was informed I'd need to improvise in the upcoming meeting, competing against another newcomer. When I heard the news, I was somewhat incredulous. I didn't even have time to process it before the meeting began. The topic was Percival's idea. I took a deep breath and stood at the front of the conference table, my hands trembling slightly. After I finished answering, Percival posed another sharp question that left me at a loss for words. Instead, it was Madeline whose response was more mature and fluent than mine. Percival rested his loosely clasped hands on his crossed long legs, squinting his eyes as he said, "Secretary Cornelia, after 3 years, you still can't outperform a newcomer." The remark was too cutting. He showed me no mercy at all. The colleagues who had been whispering in discussion suddenly fell silent. At this moment, I suddenly realized that he and I were simply not from the same world. Sitting below, he could casually dismiss everything about me, just like our relationship. At night, he was the one steering the course of this emotional game, whether in bed or out of bed, in relationships or at work. His words were harsh, and a casual remark could deeply hurt me. I remember 2 years ago when I failed my first promotion presentation. I cried and laughed, hoping for his comfort. But he told me, "Cornelia, that's how the law of survival works. If you can't make it, you'll be eliminated." I stopped crying and asked him, "Since I'm your girlfriend, can't you give me some insider information?" The corners of his lips curled into a faint smile, but he said nothing. That was the first lesson I learned in this relationship. Percival is decisive and ruthless in the workplace, handling matters with a touch of warmth, but just a touch. He has never been one to act on emotion, nor would he give me special treatment just because I'm his girlfriend. What he taught me, I also learned to apply to my work, and later I smoothly got promoted and received a raise. This time, when I failed the assessment, I didn't cry or shed tears. After it ended, Assistant Tim still wore a professional smile as he introduced to me. "This is Madeline. This is Cornelia." Cornelia. The competition won't be small this time. Madeline came back from New York. Her strength shouldn't be underestimated. Madeline extended her hand, looking at me with determination. "I'm really happy to be your competitor. You should do your best." Since Madeline was new, everyone organized an activity in private to lighten the mood. Everyone was a bit drunk, and I called Percival when I went to the restroom. The screen showed that the other party was on a call. I couldn't get through, so I gave up. Madeline, her face slightly flushed from drinking, was sobbing quietly into the phone, crying to the person on the other end. "Why haven't you come to pick me up yet? Don't you want me anymore?" Soon, a black G-Class hid in the night. The man got out of the car and walked toward the drunken Madeline. Madeline stared blankly for a moment when she saw Percival, then ran to him in tears. Percival also opened his arms and embraced her. "Don't cry." Amidst the gossip of their colleagues, Percival lifted his head. I exchanged a glance with him. He helped Madeline into the car and took my arm. "Secretary Cornelia, come with us in the car." I shook my head with a smile. "I won't disturb you anymore." Downstairs in the neighborhood, I saw the lights were on at home. I sat downstairs for a long time, then took this ring out of my pocket and sighed softly. In the end, this ring still doesn't belong to me. I carefully tucked the ring into the velvet box. Percival had changed into his pajamas, his hair damp with droplets, looking like he arrived earlier than I did. After finishing my bedtime routine, I slowly climbed back into bed, and he suddenly wrapped his arm around my waist. I felt a warm touch on my lips, the faint scent of a man lingering in the air. His fingertip pressed against my lips. Suddenly, I pushed him away abruptly and turned on the light. He looked at me. "What's wrong? Not happy today?" It suddenly occurred to me that he always calls out, "Madeline," when emotions run deep. Also, he never kisses me. Today was the first time he kissed me on his own. I pushed him away. I whispered softly, "Percival, I'm not Madeline." His brows furrowed slightly, as if he hadn't heard what I said. It was easy to part with Percival, but I couldn't help feeling reluctant to leave Mrs. Radamil, no matter what. Mrs. Radamil's kindness towards me was genuine. The next morning, I sat at the dining table waiting for Percival. Percival, let's break up. I ate my breakfast slowly, without even lifting my head. The ring was placed on the other side of the dining table. After finishing the toast, I wiped my mouth. I pointed at the red velvet box. I've taken off the ring. Give yours back to me too. Percival gave a tight-lipped smile. Cornelia, we've been together for 3 years. Can we just break up like that? During these 3 years, Percival never initiated a breakup with me, though I had 3 major fights with him. By the 3rd breakup, I was still the one who backed down first. Percival merely curled his lips slightly, as if my mention of breaking up meant nothing to him. He sat across from me, meticulously peeling an orange. Cornelia, some tricks lose their charm when overplayed. Think it through carefully. The 3rd time we were on the verge of breaking up, Percival told me, 3 strikes and you're out. This, 3 strikes, principle also applied to how he handled everything at work. Once something exceeded 3 attempts, it would test his patience. On the way to the parking lot, Percival was leaning against the car. When he saw me, he looked up. Today, I'll take you. I politely declined. I'm not going to the office today. Assistant Tim has arranged other work for me. Percival gave up. The man's face appeared pale under the light, with a smooth jawline on his profile. Madeline texted me to bet that even if she made a mistake at work, Percival wouldn't let her go. Even if I don't make any mistakes, Percival would still let me go. She asked if I believed it. Of course I believed. Not because I spinelessly yielded to her, but because those who are loved always act with confidence. Percival hadn't he waited for her all this time just to keep her by his side? For 3 years, I've always arrived at the office 10 minutes early to clock in, never daring to be late or leave early. This is the first time I've been late. Assistant Tim didn't assign me any other tasks. I simply didn't want to see Percival at all. I arrived at the office late. A colleague came over and asked, Cornelia, why are you late? Just now, Percival came looking for you. It was so scary. I made up an excuse and said you went to the restroom. He'll be back in an hour. Surprisingly, he didn't get angry. Just told you to go see him in his office. I called Percival from the office phone, and all he said was, come upstairs. I have something to tell you. I thought for a moment and replied, Percival, I'm quite busy. If you have something to say, just say it directly. Hanging up the phone, I buried myself in handling the documents at hand. Suddenly, the light above my head was blocked, and a cool, refreshing scent enveloped me. The man's voice was deep and low. Cornelia. I had been so engrossed in reading the documents that his sudden presence startled me. I clutched my chest, taking a moment to recover. Pointing at the documents on the table, I frowned and asked, can't you see, I'm busy? Percival froze for a moment. Fine, I'll come find you after work. My colleagues were startled by my tone and asked in surprise, Cornelia, are you changing jobs? Percival's competitor is poaching you. How dare you talk to him like that? I said with a laugh. Not at all. How could that be? A colleague asked. So you're resigning? I nodded slightly. Yes, I'm preparing to leave. Resignation requires a 1-month notice, and I have already submitted my resignation report. The notification tone on my phone rang. Percival sent me a message. I have him saved as A in my contacts. I secretly checked the name he has saved for me. It's just my full name, Cornelia. I felt a little disappointed when I saw the note. Why is it that even after we've been so intimate, our feelings for each other never seem to grow warmer? Madeline SIG. Percival likes every single post, but he rarely likes my IG posts. When I saw his message, I hesitated for a moment. Wait for me at the company entrance. I completely forgot about the message until it was completely dark outside, and the phone rang. A man's cool voice came through the receiver. Haven't you come down yet? Only then did I notice the time. I still have to work overtime. You go ahead. Don't wait for me. I slowly packed up the things on my desk, thinking that since I was about to resign, I should gradually take home the items on my desk. My gaze fell on the pot of succulents on the desk. It's funny to say, but I had to beg Percival for a long time before he finally gave this to me. I tossed the succulent into the trash bin by the desk. Cornelia. His voice was very soft, carrying a faint chill that seemed to seep deep into one's heart. I lifted my eyelids to look at him. Still here. Percival. The office colleagues had all left. The vast space was now just him and me. His brows furrowed slightly. Why do you call me that? I kept my head down as I stuffed small items from the table into my bag. My tone puzzled. Because you're my boss. Suddenly, A warm palm rested on my waist. His voice was slightly hoarse. "Aren't I your fiancé?" The movement of his hand paused, and I sneered coldly. "Huh, didn't we make it clear this morning? We're breaking up." I could feel his hand on my waist stiffen slightly. His lips pressed together as his gaze fell upon me. "Cornelia, did I ever promise that? We're already engaged." I took a step back. "Then let me say it clearly once more. I want to break up with you. Breaking off the engagement. When you have time, remember to return the ring to me. My ring has already been left at your place." Percival was momentarily stunned. I didn't agree. "Go home." Without another word, he wrapped his arm around my waist and pulled me into the elevator. I frowned tightly. "Are you crazy? What if we run into colleagues?" I only felt the grip around my waist tighten. His eyes remained fixed on the flickering elevator numbers. What opinions could others have about me being with my fiancé? I made my way to the car cautiously, fortunately without running into any acquaintances. Perfect timing to go back and pack my luggage. He's quite skilled in the kitchen, capable of preparing Western and Japanese cuisine. When I got home, I saw the ring I had returned to him during the day still lying on the dining table. I just glanced at it. At night, I slept in another bedroom. I heard a faint rustling sound and opened my eyes. Percival was lying on the other side, holding a pillow. Suddenly, his phone rang. He glanced at the caller and abruptly walked out to the balcony. Even the smallest sound becomes infinitely amplified in the dead of night. All I heard was the person on the other end crying and saying, "Percival, I regret it. Can you come take me away?" His tone was soft, his thin lips slightly parting and closing. Yet no sound came forth for a long time, until the sound of shattering glass came from the other end. And after a long pause, he finally spoke. "I'm coming over now." I tightly shut my eyes, pretending to be asleep. I didn't open my eyes until I heard him sigh softly, pat my head, and leave the room. The person on the phone was Madeline. Right. A year ago when I fell and got injured, she also managed to summon Percival away with just one phone call. During the day, Percival had dark circles under his eyes and looked somewhat exhausted. I yawned, looking at the closet full of clothes, wondering how to take them all with me. Suddenly, the man spoke. "What kind of wedding dress do you like? And the wedding venue? I'll go take a look with Mom in a few days." I chuckled softly. "Percival, you should be asking Madeline that." Percival cast a cold glance at me. "Don't joke about her." I crouched on the ground, picking up the fallen apple. "I'm serious." He suddenly grabbed me by the waist. "Let's go try on wedding dresses now." He forcefully took me away. Sitting in the car, his expression was calm. I turned my head to look at him. "Percival, you like Madeline, don't you?" The tires beneath screeched with friction as he sat steadily on the seat, furrowing his brows and slowly turning to look at me. His expression carried a hint of panic. "Cornelia, that was in the past." I pursed my lips and smiled. "Does something that happened a month ago still count as before?" Percival tightly gripped my hand and led me into the bridal shop. He explained, "Right now, I only like you." I gazed at the wedding dress in the glass display case. Intricate, beautiful, stunning. I casually took a photo and posted it to IG, visible only to Madeline. She arrived faster than I had imagined. She was wearing a hospital gown with a coat over it. She looked so frail, as if she might collapse at any moment. Percival frowned slightly when he saw her. "What are you doing here?" Her eyes were slightly red. "Percival, he's here again. I'm scared. Will you come with me one last time?" He looked at me with hesitation, as if seeking my opinion, and I simply gave a slight nod. "You go ahead and look. I'll be right back." Without waiting for him, I returned to the company and found that my resignation request had been approved when I opened the email. I leisurely sipped the afternoon tea that my colleague had treated me to. A rough growl came from outside. "Cornelia, where is she? Tell her to get out here." I looked up and saw a man in a black cotton jacket, a scar on his face, holding a slender knife pointed straight at me. When I saw a man dressed like this, my heart suddenly tightened, and my pupils dilated in shock. I didn't know him, yet he walked straight toward me with a knife. Seeing the knife in his hand, my colleagues around me panicked, frantically grabbing their phones to call the police. He kept pressing forward, forcing me to step back. My throat tightened and went hoarse. "Don't move. Let's talk this out properly. I don't know you," he roared. "You seduced my daughter's boyfriend, being the other woman. I'm going to kill you." I shook my head, continuously trying to calm him down. "I don't have a boyfriend. I don't know your daughter either." He waved the knife around wildly and shouted, She seduced Percival. Percival. You all know him, right? It's your boss. The colleague said. Calm down. There's no way she could be with Percival. Who is your daughter? The man shouted. Madeline is your Percival's girlfriend. She has been with your Percival for 8 years. It was Cornelia who stole my daughter's boyfriend. His knife pressed against my neck, making a small cut from which blood slowly oozed out. With a clatter, the knife fell to the ground. Percival's veins bulged on his forehead. He rolled up his sleeves. His shirt unbuttoned at the top, revealing prominent veins on his neck as well. He kicked the man with full force. Security rushed over. Percival roared. Hold him down. The man was pinned to the ground. I watched him with lingering fear as he writhed and screamed desperately. I'll kill you. Homewrecker. My palms were sweating cold, and my whole body felt chilled. It was the first time I felt so close to death. A strong force pulled me into an embrace, and I caught the crisp woody scent on him. I struggled desperately to break free, but his grip only grew stronger, and I roared in anger. Let go. Stay away from me. He slowly loosened his hold, only to pull me back, his fingers forcefully intertwining with mine. His gaze softened. Let's go to the hospital. I shook him off. I'm calling the police. With trembling hands, I took out my phone. Percival snatched it from me. I'll call the police. Through the glass, I saw my hair had become disheveled during the struggle. Looking into his eyes, I said firmly, no, you would cover up for Madeline. I don't believe you. He gripped my hand tightly, pulling out his phone with his free hand to dial the emergency number. Go get your wound treated first. Okay. I shook my head and refused. He sighed softly. Only after completing the police statement did I go to the hospital to treat my wounds. He knelt on the ground with one knee bent, his furrowed brows still tense. Coincidentally, Madeline was also in this hospital, wrapped in a coat and wearing a hospital gown. She wandered around until she spotted me sitting in the hallway. She immediately rushed over. Cornelia, why did you call the police? Why did you take my dad away? I sneered at her. Why can't I call the police? Percival stepped in front of her. Go back. Madeline had tears in her eyes, looking pitiful and fragile. Her already pale face, combined with the ill-fitting hospital gown, made her thin frame appear even more pitiable. A single cry was enough to evoke sympathy. Percival, don't you want me anymore? I didn't bring my coat when I came out. It's still in the office. A cold wind blew. Percival placed his overcoat over my shoulders. I stood motionless, and he tightened the coat around me. Put it on. It's cold, Madeline said with a sob in her voice. Percival, I'm cold too. He lifted his eyelids and said coldly, if you're cold, go back to the ward. He took my hand, intertwining our fingers. He held on tightly, as if afraid I might run away the next second. I broke free from his grasp, took off my coat, and draped it over Madeline. Are you cold? Then you should keep it on. I walked towards the elevator. The person behind also followed up. Percival's eyes quickly filled with panic, his face turning pale. Cornelia. Before Madeline could catch up, he immediately pressed the close button. Inside the enclosed elevator, I felt utterly weak. He stubbornly held my hand, gripping it tightly, his voice trembling slightly. Let's go home. Once inside the room, I packed some essential items. He blocked the doorway. Must you go? I nodded. Yes. He retreated outside the house. I'm going out. It's too late now. It's not safe. During the day when the door was opened, he was waiting at the entrance. I'll go to the company with you. I spoke. No need. What happened yesterday had negative repercussions. I hope you can clarify the situation. I arrived at the company entrance, and he was also there. I went around to the parking lot and took the elevator upstairs. In the restroom, I overheard people talking about how yesterday's incident had caused such a huge stir. It was truly shocking. Fortunately, I'll be resigning soon. There were also colleagues who were close to me offering comfort and guidance. Percival walked into the office and took my hand. Let's go home. Madeline is my sister-in-law. I brushed him off and said, I did date him, but we've broken up now. Standing in the hallway, his eyes slightly red. I don't agree to the breakup. I looked into his eyes and asked word by word. Percival, you never wanted to acknowledge our relationship in front of colleagues. Yet you were willing to take me home. Is it actually because you have a secret crush on your sister-in-law? And your parents are desperate for you to get married? His thin lips parted and closed again, a few words escaping his throat. Yes, but I didn't listen to his explanation. There was no need. On my way out, I received a call from Mrs. Radamil, still as gentle as ever. Cornelia, when are you coming over for a meal? It's been so long. I calmly said, Auntie, Percival and I have broken up. I won't be coming for dinner. Mrs. Radamil asked in panic. What's going on here? After hanging up the phone, I remembered how I had posted many affected IG posts just to catch Percival's attention. I blocked him on IG. It's not too cold today, and the sun is out for the first time in a while. I sat on a bench in the park, ignoring Percival's countless calls, and eventually just turned off my phone. Just as I was about to leave, Madeline stood in front of me. She didn't look too well. Cornelia, let's talk. Sure. What would you like to talk about? She smiled with the confidence of victory, as if in the competition of a game, Percival was the final prize, and she was already certain of winning. She then took out her phone, pulled up IG photos from her hospital stay in Mexico last year, and shared them with me. You were hospitalized that day too, weren't you? But I got robbed in Mexico, and he flew over on the very same night. I calmly watched her triumphant smile. It's just a pity that none of this could provoke me. I simply listened to her speak, seeing my emotions remain completely unruffled. She excitedly said, I grew up with both of their brothers, and I just married his elder brother. His brother got into a car accident, but he's always liked me. I said with a smile. I see. I picked up my bag to leave, but she grabbed my hand. Write a letter of understanding for my dad. From what I understand, the injuries on her body were inflicted by her father. That night, Percival went to the hospital in the middle of the night because she had been domestically abused by her father. After that, Madeline would message me every day begging me to write a letter of understanding for her father. After I blocked her, it finally became completely quiet. As the new year approaches, the streets are adorned with festive red lanterns. On the day I was shopping for New Year's supplies for my new home, I spotted a shadowy figure lurking suspiciously in the neighborhood. I cautiously walked away, heading towards the security room, only to find that the person was actually wearing a security guard's uniform. My face turned pale, and my throat tightened. It's Madeline's father. He rushed at me, strangling my neck, and I couldn't cry out for help. A tall figure loomed over me. I could finally breathe. The next second, the two were tearing at each other. At the same time, Percival and the man both fell to the ground. The man clutched his chest, scrambling up in panic to flee. Percival had a glaring wound on his arm, with blood gushing out. I stared in horror at the pool of blood and immediately called the police. Percival turned pale from excessive blood loss and collapsed, admitted to the ICU. Mr. Chen was notified. Mrs. Radamil. Mrs. Radamil, her hands were trembling. Upon hearing what had happened, she cried and scolded. She's a jinx. She caused the death of my eldest son, and now she's trying to harm my youngest. When she was little, she was our neighbor, and her father was a gambler. When his father was released from prison, Percival's older brother died protecting her. He was hit by a car. Percival and his brother were constantly manipulated by her. Percival developed feelings for her because during their childhood, his father and I were too busy with work to care for the two brothers. She would always give any delicious food to Percival, making Percival's feelings for her ambiguous. It wasn't until this year that we discovered the hit-and-run driver who killed Percival's brother was actually Madeline's father. Percival was in the operating room and then fell into a coma for 3 days and nights. When he woke up, he called my name weakly, and at Mrs. Radamil's pleading, I entered the ward. He said, "Will you marry me?" Seeing the tears welling up in his eyes, I found it particularly ironic, recalling that night when he confessed to Madeline with reddened eyes. A mocking smile curled at the corner of my lips. Percival, you love her. That night, I heard everything. You told her that if she didn't turn back, you would marry me. That was the first time I saw you cry. His face stiffened, his throat tightened, and his voice trembled slightly. I did like her, but I don't anymore. Cornelia, I'm sorry. Percival's hand was injured from being cut, making him unable to lift heavy objects or exert too much force. Mrs. Radamil repeatedly begged me to visit him, but I refused each time. In spring, I was preparing to move. I saw Percival downstairs in the neighborhood, standing there all alone, his back looking lonely, no longer as spirited as before, head hanging low. He did seem rather pitiful, yet I couldn't muster any sympathy for him. He rushed up to me like an eager puppy wagging its tail. Cornelia, Madeline and her father have both gone in. I learned some time ago that Madeline had urged her father to retaliate against me. If it weren't for Percival showing up in time, with my strength it would indeed have been difficult to contend with a grown man. But, if it weren't for Percival, I wouldn't have had these experiences. I nodded to show I understood. After a long time, he smiled bitterly. It's been a long time since I've seen your IG. I touched my phone. I've blocked you. The day I broke up with you. You went to see Madeline at night. I couldn't sleep. His smile froze. Actually, I've read every single one of your IG posts. You mentioned wanting to grow succulents. So I asked assistant Tim to buy a pot of succulents for you. I saw you IG reposted a proposal video. So I bought a ring. I did have an obsession with Madeline for some reasons before. My brother's passing and family circumstances made me confused about my own feelings. But now I understand. What I feel for her is just familial affection. Just thinking about you being with someone else in the future makes me so upset I can barely breathe. His hands hung limply at his sides. That day, it was because her father was abusing her. She begged me in tears. So I went. He spoke cautiously, his voice hoarse and unpleasant. His gaze at me was fragmented, eyes brimming with tears. Cornelia, I love you. I let out a cold laugh. This is the first time I've seen you cry because of me. While moving, I spotted his tall figure at the airport, on the other side of the city. I deleted his and his family's contact information, even though Mrs. Radamil was kind to me. By the seaside, I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure, and I knew who it was. Later, he sent me a message asking, IG, can you show me? I used to want to share everything with him. Now, what's missed is missed. Someone I once loved deeply is just so ordinary after all.